Sound is something that we interact with every day within different contexts as individuals and as a society. In many ways, sound is the source of order in our society as it determines how we interact socially. However, as we know, many people are deaf and do not have access to the distance door, making their experience in society very different from hearing people. With this in mind, many considerations should be made by architects to give non-hearing people an everyday experience and by extension a social status equal to hearing people. To fully understand the connection between sound and society, we must first define some key terms. A soundscape is similar to a physical landscape that makes up to audio realm of a place, including natural and cultural, improvised or consciously produced, and incidental or composed sounds. Soundscapes and people may share a strong bond called topophonophilia, also known as sonic sediment. It is also important to know three key ways that have been identified to in how sound is interacted with socially, which is in a context or trigger of social practices, as an integral element of social practices and autonomous social practices. Along with this, in the research, they took three related and complementary elements of the practice into account: materials or things, competency, and skills, and meanings or social and symbolic significance. In this sample selection, there was approximately 2 hour sessions with 24 people in total taking part in the studies. In equal proportions, there was Group 1 sighted hearing non-wheelchair users, Group 2 deaf sighted non-wheelchair users, Group 3 blind hearing non-wheelchair users, and Group 4 sighted hearing wheelchair users. And in this study, they were asked to walk, creating a sensory video walk, which required the participants to wear glasses that had a camera on it. And as different sensory things happen, those things would be picked up on the camera and be later used to create results for the study. Along with that, some were asked to create a path that allow us to see what they felt as they navigated through the space, or if they could map out the area as they were walking. And figure 1 shows the map of the sighted hearing non-wheelchair users. And group 2 showed, or figure 2 showed, the map of a blind hearing non-wheelchair user. As you can see by both of these maps, they were made differently due to their different abilities to create a certain type of map. As you can see with figure 2, the map of the blind hearing non-wheelchair user was asked to create a map out of clay, and then the bumps expressed different things that distracted them or distracted their attention while they were on their walk. The interesting part about this part of the study was the wheelchair users tended to feel very distracted while they were on this walk because they couldn't put all of their attention towards one thing. They had to think about their safety, making sure they weren't bumping into people, while also trying to make sure that they were staying on route. So they weren't really able to be as 100% focused as someone who was a sighted person, as you will see in figure 1 of a sighted hearing non-wheelchair user. Firstly, a large amount of information was received by the hearing people. A lot of the hearing people was thought of as or giving oral information because they were very sensitive to the acoustic phenomena going on. A lot of the times, sound really constituted the way that they walked throughout the space. They were really reactive to sounds. They would slow down, turn around, or they even change the direction of their route depending on the sounds that they hear, which makes sense because if you hear the sound of a horn, for an example, you're more likely to look back to see what's going on, or, to see if you're in danger or not. And even though we may not think that deaf or hard of hearing people would have the same experience, their experiences were similar as to how they reacted to sound, although the way that they perceived the sound was very different. I thought that was interesting because the way that they became familiar with the area or understanding the environment was by noticing the gestures of people around them. And depending on the gestures that they made, they were able to conclude the type of environment that they were in or what type of things were going on in there. And from that, they were able to change their own movement. They conditioned to different mobile practices such as stopping, speeding up, or even changing the trajectory of their movements because they were somehow they were sensing these different things going on in the environment. Another thing that I've noticed when I was reading this was that this hearing and deaf people experience the feeling of sounds. So when people would dance, they could feel, it could better help them see what was going on. This is also for blind people as well. They were able to sense what was going on based off the acoustic waves going on in the space. It helped them navigate and it made them feel more comfort. Those were two very interesting differences about the two, is that deaf people are not mute. They can still hear, although it is different from the way that we non-deaf people. The results of this study revealed many things about the verbal and verbal behaviors, ways of listening, speaking, looking, touching, and walking among different sensory groups. There are a few key ideas that came from this study as it relates to the social sciences. For one, social sound practices constitute social reception and recognition of soundscapes. Also, soundscapes are defined by the perception of sound and not by the sounds themselves, and therefore sensory diverse social actors create multiple overlapping soundscapes. Thirdly, since the same sounds mean different things to different people, soundscapes are a source of social identification within a space. Lastly, the urban audiosphere is non-neutral or non-existent for deaf people, but is experienced in many ways, either directly experienced or imagined. As you can see, this article and the overall growing body of research of sound practices is very important in understanding the role of sound in different people's everyday life and the experience of the built environment. There are many ways that this research can be applied to ensure that spaces are accessible and comfortable for different abled people. I believe if designers and architects keep in mind how sensory diverse people will be affected in different ways by their designs, we will be on the way to creating a more equitable world for everyone. Thank you.